Jazzcast Pros.
Hello, and welcome back to High Vibe Table Talks. I'm your host, Marshawn Hargrave, and today we are going to be talking about one of the most inevitable things that you are going to run into in your sales process and how to rebound after. Welcome to High Vibe Table Talks, the podcast to help you, the current or aspiring solopreneur, navigate the messy middle so you can make both an income and an impact. Hi, I'm Rashawn, and I love creating safe spaces for women to be courageous in their dreams. After spending a decade working in sales for a startup and talking with hundreds of other women entrepreneurs, I know it can be lonely, but you can do this. If you are in sales, you are going to hear no. Think about your top favorite influencers, your top favorite companies, the top things that you've bought from people, the top people who are advertising things out in the world. And one thing that they all have in common with you is that they have all heard no multiple times. One of the things we can do to add to our sales toolbox is to figure out what to do when we hear no. It's one of those things that's like inevitable. And so you have to kind of like figure out how to manage it, because if you let it pull you down or spin out, then you're never going to kind of get back into it. Like if you fall off your bike and are like, well, that really hurt, that I don't ever want to do that again, you're never going to learn how to ride your bike. And so I think there's two pieces to it, and we'll get into that. But first, I want to really understand, what does hearing no actually look like? Because when I say everyone's going to hear no, that no can come in a few different forms. And so you have to kind of be aware of it in the different forms that it comes in. And so there will be people that will say, no, I'm not interested in it, or it's too expensive, or all of the different ways that people actually say to your face, like, I'm not interested in what you have to offer. That one can feel the hardest. That being said, you get a lot of information from that. You know, what are they saying no to? You cut them out kind of your sales funnel, and they're kind of being more direct about the reason that they're not interested in the moment. So, you know, my dad always says, yes is a good answer, no is a good answer. The only bad answer is maybe. And so even hearing that no is like, okay, at least I have an answer. There are other ways that people are going to say no. They're going to say, give me some time to think about it. And that is just a lot of times prolonging the sales cycle. So they actually think no, but they feel bad. You know, a lot of people feel bad saying no. And so they push off having to have the actual conversation. And so they come up with excuses to continue in the sales cycle, but they don't actually mean it. And so finding a way to create some sort of urgency is always helpful. You know, one of the things that we do in the client that I consult for is we send them a breakup email and say, hey, it looks like this has fallen off of your priority list. And so that's okay. And we're going to be here when you're ready. But I don't want to keep popping up in your inbox when it's clearly not a priority for you. And it's just kind of that push to be like, hey, you said this was a priority. Priorities change. I'm okay with that. You're not hurting my feelings by not going further along. I just have a limited bandwidth of energy that I can put into sales, and I don't want to continue doing it if this isn't going to be a good fit for you. This is something you do further down the line. This is when you've really built up that relationship and have a different rapport with them than, you know, someone sends you interest in your pop-up on your website and 3 emails later, they never get back to you and you kind of send that. I think this one is more geared towards, you've had conversations, you've done the sales pitch. It's a little bit further down in the sales cycle. But it's just a way to kind of say like, hey, you know, you gave me this information that this was important to you. It seems like things have changed. And so, you know, it's just one of those ways to try to create some urgency based on the information that you do have. And so the next way that people can say no is ghosting you. Crickets. You reach out, they say they're interested, and then you just hear nothing, no matter, you're just waiting and waiting and waiting. And there are two things that I would say to this. The first is that people have to hear your name at least 7 times before they are interested in buying. And so sending one email and being like, oh, well, guess they weren't interested because I didn't hear anything back. Like, that's not being fair to yourself, and it's not being fair to them. How many times have you had to be reminded about things? How many times have you been so in love with something and then another email comes in, or, the timer goes off, or it's time to get someone off the school bus, and like you're distracted. And so you never like make that follow through purchase. And so it's being unfair to yourself by saying like, oh, well, they must not be all that interested. My stuff must just not be that good. And it's not being fair to them, because our energy is needed in so many different places and spaces that we have to give them the courtesy to be like, hey, just a reminder, I'm still here. And on top of that, like, our energy is needed in so many different places, and that we are constantly being bombarded with ads and ideas and information, that you also want to be top of mind when whatever it is that they need, you have. Not hearing anything may mean that it's just not top of mind. It's not a priority for them at the moment. And so continuing to sprinkle in your information so that when they do need you, you're easy to find, and you're the first person that comes up in their brain of like, oh, I have this problem and I know exactly who I want to fix it. So those are the couple ways that we may hear no without actually hearing no. So all of those are instances that I'm talking about with us hearing no, even though a lot of the times we're not actually hearing the words, no thanks, I'm not interested, from the prospects. It comes in other forms. The first mindset piece that I really want to focus on, and I think I talked about this like early in one of the podcast episodes, but it's the detachment of our business and our identity. A lot of times, because we have created these businesses and put so much time, energy, love, money, resources into, we can feel like they are part of our identity. And we have to detach that, because then one of the things that happens when we do hear no is that we feel like we are less than. I'm not enough because that person didn't buy. But if we detach and say, this is my business, this is my baby, I love this thing that I'm creating, but it is not who I am at my core, we're not associating that no with us being enough. And so the first kind of mental work that I would say to do is to make sure that you're spending time detaching and being really intentional about understanding that your business is not who you are at your core. The mindset shift number 2, every no is a potential for a not right now. And so maybe them saying, I don't have the budget for me right now, means they're not in the same place in the funnel. That doesn't mean they can't go and hang out higher up in the funnel. They can still be have a drip campaign. They can still be on your email list. They can still be connected to you on different social platforms. And so hearing no and being like, okay, thank you for telling me that. And so I won't have you in this place in my funnel where there are a higher number of touch points, but I'm going to move you back up. And you don't have to have that conversation with them. You don't have to say that to them, especially if you're hearing crickets, but move them back up and then say, okay, they're going to go back, and this isn't for them right now, but that doesn't mean that this isn't for them forever. One of the things with my mastermind is that there were certain people who just, it wasn't in the right time in their entrepreneur cycle for them to join a mastermind. And that's okay. That doesn't mean that a mastermind is never going to be for them. Even like busy seasons of life, like, okay, you can't put your head down and grow your business as much as you want to if you're in a really busy season of life with other responsibilities. And so that's okay. So understanding that sometimes no means not right now is a nice mindset shift to have. Like for me in my marketing, my sales through email right now, I have a certain number of emails that if they don't get clicked on or responded to, that's me hearing a no. And that's okay. And I have created that line for me that's more than one email, but less than, let's say, 10 in a certain amount of time. And so if like I have a email marketing campaign that is running for 4 weeks and I send them 8 emails over the 4 weeks or 7, 6, whatever that number is, if they don't take any action from there, that is me hearing no from them, not right now. And so they do move back up higher in the funnel. And so for yourself, creating a time in which I haven't heard anything, we haven't taken any further action, so I am going to take that as a no and move you a little bit back further up the funnel so that I can spend my time, energy, resources on finding other people who may be closer to a yes in this moment for me. There are lots of people, and I hear about it in the virtual co-working that I run, where someone said no 6 months, 12 months, 24 months ago, and then came back. And I wasn't doing like a ton of active selling to them, but I was top of mind. And so when they did have the budget, when they were ready, when they did have the bandwidth, whatever the resources is that they may not have at the moment, when they were ready, I was the first person that they reached out to, which is really great. And the last reframe and mindset shift that I would like to touch on is going based on the data. When I was making 250 cold calls a week, I would talk to about 10 to 15 people. I would set up 3 to 4 meetings, and I would get 1 to 2 people to sign. And I knew those numbers. And so every time I heard no, I could mark something off that made me feel like I was closer to yes. And so a lot of what we talk about in the course is about taking action and keeping with the momentum so that you do feel like even though you're hearing a no or hearing crickets, that means you are closer to yes. And so continuing to focus on the actions that you're able to take. You have no control over who says yes, what people do, who is in the right season for your product or service. All you have is your ability to keep showing up. And so if you're like, okay, I'm closer to yes, I'm closer to yes, I'm closer to yes, every time you hear no or don't hear anything, it switches the mindset to, oh, I can't believe they said no, to like, okay, I'm making progress. And again, that is all that we have control over. One of the things that I want you to think about when you do hear no is celebrating that you showed up. Because that really is like you showed up and you took the action. I always talk about how action breeds clarity and action breeds confidence. And so taking that action is what is going to bring you the confidence to keep showing up regardless of if you hear yes or no. And the second part of that is action breeds clarity is until you say that script, send that email, make those cold calls, and actually do the work, you're going to have no idea if it works or not, if it resonates or not, if you're calling the right people. All of that information that you're gathering as you're doing those outreaches is gathering data, whether things are working really well or not working. All of that is data that you can then compile into your toolkit to say like, okay, this works better. This time of day works better. This number of calls is what I need to hit. This part of the workflow works really well. This subject line gets opened a lot more because it's framed in a question versus a statement. An emoji in there works better versus no emoji, or any of those things, any of those variables that you can use. The more you take action, the more you're going to get data back to say this works or this doesn't. And so make sure you're capturing all of that, because we can get in our head a lot of like, oh my God, I made so many calls or I did so much outreach and I heard nothing back from anybody. And it's like, okay, you sent 12 emails one time and didn't follow up with any of them and didn't change anything to see if that would work, or, whatever it can be. And so really understanding your data is going to be a way to take your ego and emotion out of it and say, okay, here's what I did, here's what worked, here's what didn't, how can we move forward? Again, taking the ego out of it is detaching who we are from our business, and hearing no doesn't say anything about our enoughness. There's two things that I think are important as we talk about the mindset shift before and also the mindset shift after. When you're taking a lot of little action, maybe you don't necessarily need to emotionally regulate after, but sometimes let's say you're having a bunch of conversations with one client and they're really excited and it feels like it's a go. And then for whatever reason, it ends up going the wrong way. And so the bigger the deal and the closer you are to the bottom of the funnel, this is where you may need to take some time to like decompress, self-regulate, scream into a pillow sometimes, because everybody, again, the best salespeople in the world hear no and don't have people buy their stuff 100% of the time. And so pausing, taking a breath, reminding yourself this isn't personal. This doesn't say anything about me. What is this rejection redirecting me towards? And once you kind of have like emotionally regulated and celebrated yourself for showing up and you're not beating yourself up, then you can take in the data piece of it. Why did they say no? What wasn't a good fit? Is there anything about our interactions that maybe I could have changed to make that no into a yes? Sometimes it's never going to be a yes. Sometimes it just falls through because it falls through. But can you take any learning moments from your interactions to possibly turn that no into a yes next time? But that's only after you do some of the emotional regulation, taking a breath, making sure we know it's not about us and who we are at our core. And it's not about the fact that we don't have something to offer to people in this world, that our product, our offering, our service isn't good enough. No one's ever going to buy it. I mean, we've all spun out into those shame cycles. And so catching yourself before you get too far down is piece one. And then piece two, like looking at some of the data and figuring out, are there ways that you could have done something different? And so the next kind of part of that is, how do you continue to stay in motion after you do hear no? This is why I think that having a system, using your CRM, focusing on the action that you're taking, not the outcome, heavily relying on your action derived goals, not your outcome derived goals, are so important, because again, you can't dictate who says yes or no. You can only dictate how often you show up. If you need a place to show up, join the Prospecting Power Hours. I run them every Wednesday in combination with the Sales Prospecting Simplified course. I would love to have you. It's so much fun. You can try one of the Power Hours for free if you DM me the word Power Hour, and I will send you the link. I would love to have you. It has been so much fun. And the people that are in it right now are talking about how differently they're showing up. When I was initially asking them, like, what are ways that you hear no? What are ways that like you're struggling? It's like, it dawned on them how few sales conversations they were actually having. And now they're having like double-digit sales conversations with people every single week, just in that hour and a half that we're on the call. So I would love that to be you if that's something you need. But having a system, whatever that looks like for you, tracking the small wins, what are the actions that you're taking? Did you hit your cold outreach goals for the week, for the month, for the quarter, whatever? And celebrating those, because it's so easy to forget that those happen and not focus on them. But my tagline has been for a long time, and I truly believe it, is that big dreams and small steps will transform your life. And so taking those small action steps of, 20 cold outreaches every Wednesday from 10 to 11:30, like that's going to transform your business. And the last piece of this is staying in community. That's one piece that the Power Hours really bring, is like community of like, hey, yep, I did the 20 cold outreach and I heard crickets and that sucks. And someone else is like, I did too. But like we accomplished something together. And those who get it. Like, people who aren't in sales and aren't in cold outreach don't understand how exhaustive and soul sucking and hard and like you're walking through quicksand those things can be. But when you talk to others who like are doing it, it really makes an impact on the actions that you take. So those are some tips on how I rebound from being rejected, from hearing no, whether that no showed up in I need some more time, directly hearing no, crickets, whatever that looked like. These are some reframes that you can do, some things that you can have to support you, and some things to really focus on when you're doing the really difficult work that is prospecting. It is, and just sales in general. It's not easy. Hearing no, it's not easy. Hearing crickets, you have this incredible thing that you are creating. You want to get out there and help more people. And it's just not always easy to find those people. If you want community and support in finding more of those people and having more sales conversations, please join the Sales Prospecting Power Hours. We would love to have you. Again, DM me a Power Hour and I will send you the link to join the first one for free, or you can join the Sales Prospecting Simplified course and you get one every week as long as you're enrolled in the course. I would love to have you. And I hope this was helpful. Next episode, we're going to be talking about the sales types and really figuring out like what sales type you are so that you can decide how to take action that's really aligned with who you are and the type of salesperson that you can be and want to be. So until next time, remember that big dreams and small steps will transform your life.